University. I'm Dr. Gurram Ramakrishna from Department of Commerce, Mizoram University, and organizing secretary of this webinar. Along with me, Dr. Lonline Luangi Fanai. She's also organizing secretary from the Department of Commerce, Mizoram University, and I would like to thank for participating the webinar, and I would like to thank our department HOD, Professor M.R. Jyoti Kumar, sir, and we are organizing a webinar on practical scenario of cost and budget, an academic perspective. The speaker for our program is Mr. Dharmateja Immadi. He is Officer Finance and Accounts in Coal India Limited. Before his introduction, I would like to share the outline of the program. So after the introduction of the speaker and the program, Mr. Dharmateja will take over the session and he will make presentation for the program. Meanwhile, if participants having any questions, please put these questions in a Q&A box. It is just below the screen, not in the chat box. Okay, and type your questions very precisely. Don't go very long questions. Okay, at the end, after presentation is over, then we'll take up questions from Q&A section, and Mr. Teja will be responding to all these questions. After that, we'll be finishing the program with a vote of thanks. And I would like to introduce, I would like to tell about the Mizoram University. It was founded in 2001, and the Department of Commerce started in 2002. We are 7 faculty members with 3 professors, 2 associate professors, and 2 assistant professors. Now, if you would allow me to word present our today, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Dharmateja Immadi is having a vast experience in teaching as well as practical in professional courses, and he is certified cost accountant from Institute of Cost Accountants of India, and he is certified company secretary from Institute of Company Secretaries of India. He got his master's in Master of Commerce. He is currently working as Officer Finance and Accounts in Coal India Limited, which is Maharatna Public Sector Unit at Asia's biggest coal mine named Gewra in Chhattisgarh. So with this small introduction to the Mr. Dharmateja, I would like to request him to take the session. And once again, I'm requesting all the participants, whatever the questions and queries you have, kindly put it in the Q&A box, not in the chat box. So over to you, sir.
Can we start the session?
Yes, sir.
Very good afternoon, everyone. Namaste. First of all, thank you so much for the Vice Chancellor of Mizoram Central University and Department of Commerce, HOD sir, and the organizers and the entire team of Mizoram Central University. And thank you so much for all the participants too for your presence in this wonderful session, which I am going to take on the subject of cost and budget. So as our organizer, Dr. Sri Ramakrishna said, I am Dharmateja Immadi. I am a cost accountant and also I am a company secretary. I did my master's in commerce. And initially, I started my career in teaching only for many number of years, almost for a decade. And then simultaneously, I was continuing my professional courses and profession in costing as well as budgeting and secretarial matters. And then I joined one Maharatna company called Coal India Limited. I hope every one of you know about the company, which is having a very cash-rich resources. And currently, I am posted as an officer finance and accounts in Gebra area, which is Asia's biggest coal mine in Chhattisgarh. Now, the session is practical scenario of cost and budget, which is to be conducted especially on academic perspective point of view. I am the dealing officer here in my project as well, especially to look into the cost and budget. That's why we have opted to have a session on cost and budget so that I can give you a very good feedback and very good suggestions in cost and budget. How practically we are conducting the budget sessions, how practically we are considering the budget in the entity, and how it is going to influence and how it is going to useful in our organizations as well as in our individual lives. See, first of all, we are going to have a glance of the concepts what we are going to deal in the coming 1.5 hour session. So if we have an idea of what we are going to discuss, what I am going to teach, then you can listen well and you can have a good idea of what you are listening. We are going to discuss what is meant by cost and what is meant by budget, and the importance of cost and budget, and how cost and budget influence the growth. The growth is of individual as well as an organization as a whole. And I will take some live examples of union budget in India and budgets of PSUs, public sector undertakings, like Coal India, NTPC, SAIL, ONGC, IOCL, and all. And important tips to reduce the costs based on the academic perspective as well as my own experiences I will share with you, and how to prepare an effective economy and efficient budget. We will discuss on this, and why organizations fail and what happens if we don't have a plan and if we don't prepare and if we don't follow the budget. And importance of reserves, which is a very key aspect, very important aspect out of all, and how all this is going to influence in your academics. And we will take the session in and around through your academic point of view. Shall we start? So I would like to start the session with one simple note: as a goal without plan is just a wish. Why I took this slide, why I took this quote initially is the concept what we are going to discuss, the cost as well as budget, is entirely a planning sector, planning scenario, planning thing. Without having a plan, if you do anything, that is nothing but hitting a stone in the dark. You may hit the goal or may not hit the goal, which is having no scope. So always have a plan before doing anything. So the cost and budget section is completely on the subject of plan. So as we discuss the concept list, the first concept is we must understand what is cost and what is budget. The basic fundamental thing, the fundamental definition, everyone knows about cost is nothing but the total expenditure, whatever we incur to convert a raw material into the finished goods. That is the fundamental definition we get anywhere, either in any book or in any lecture, that everyone knows. But when we are considering cost, when we are focusing on cost, few important things we have to consider. They are nothing but which are hidden in nature. That is, we must focus on additional key elements which are hidden in nature, means nothing but some costs we can't see directly, but still we have to consider them as cost. So cost includes both monetary and non-monetary costs. What does it mean? Let me take you through an example. When you are calculating the total cost, we have to take the opportunity cost. What is meant by opportunity cost? opportunity cost by definition wise, we can say that opportunity cost is the cost which is nothing but we are losing by selecting an alternative opportunity. For example, you have two opportunities. One, you can start a practice on your own. One, you can go for employment. Coming to your career perspective, I am speaking. You have two options. You can start on your own or you can go for an employment. The option one is giving you, for example, 50,000 rupees per month. Option two is giving, for example, 1 lakh rupee per month. Then, if you want to select an option one, then how much you have to ask or how much you have to get? Is it a 50,000 rupees or 1 lakh rupee? It must be 1 lakh rupee. Normally, you are getting only 50,000 rupees by selecting your own practice rather than employment. But by selecting the option one, you are losing 50 more thousand rupees, which you may get by selecting employment. So 50,000 rupees you have to get from the source of your own practice, and 50,000 rupees additionally you have to get from the source of employment. That 50,000 rupees additional benefit you are losing by selecting the opportunity one, that is called as opportunity cost. When you are calculating the cost, you have to consider these types of hidden costs in nature, just like opportunity costs as well. Then only you can calculate the total cost. If you fail to calculate the total cost, then all your cost structure will be collapsed. If you are not able to calculate the total cost in a proper way, you can't fix the price properly. If you can't fix the price properly for any article, then you will end up with losses. So make sure that whenever you are calculating the cost, then always you have to consider the minute expenditures which are hidden in nature. This is not exactly I'm talking in manufacturing or business point of view. In your personal aspect, maybe in academics or maybe in personal lives, when you are going, when you are considering the cost, for example, you are going for a travel, you have to have a plan of cost, how much cost you are going to incur. Then you have to consider these minute expenditures also. Then only it will be effective cost. And the next one is, next slide, please. See, this is the fundamental cost sheet where which you can find anywhere. Like it may be one state of India or another state of India or any other nation. It may be the past or it may be the present or the future. Round the clock, round the globe. This is a fundamental cost sheet what everyone prepares. See, in the cost sheet, we have the categories like direct material, direct labor, direct expenses. All these are to be called as direct costs. First of all, we must know what is meant by direct cost and what is meant by indirect cost. Direct cost is that one which we can identify directly in any finished good, in any article. Easily we can identify, easily we can focus. They are all to be called as direct cost, which we can't find directly, which we can't see directly, which we can't identify directly, we call them as indirect costs. Initially, whenever you are preparing the cost, whenever you are calculating the cost, first you grab out all the direct costs. The main elements of the cost are material, labor, and expenses. So all these direct material, direct labor, direct expenses we called as the total direct cost in the name of prime cost. All the indirect costs we call with the name of overheads, which are hidden in nature, which are indirect in nature, which are not direct. And those overheads are again split into factory overhead, office and administration overhead, and selling and distribution overhead. anyone can have a focus on direct costs, but if anyone fail to have a focus on this indirect cost, then it will be a disaster. Then you can't find the total accurate cost. So always have a focus on indirect costs. And this is one of the very important interview questions also. What is an indirect cost? A watchman's salary is there. How do you consider the total expenditure, total cost? A packing person is there. Packing assistant is there. And how do you consider the salary given to a packing person? Is it a direct in nature or indirect in nature? How do we consider his salary? Where do we consider his salary? All these concepts usually which are hidden in nature, which are to be considered as indirect cost, and based on the working locality, we have to consider it as either factory overhead or office and admin overhead or selling and distribution overhead. Simply, I am telling you, whenever you are calculating the total cost, have a focus on both direct cost as well as indirect cost. If you don't focus on the indirect cost, then you can't calculate the total cost accurately. So, total profit or loss to an entity or an individual is entirely depends on the total cost incurred in all heads of expenditure, including hidden costs, as discussed earlier. Okay, I hope you understand what is meant by direct costs and indirect costs briefly, but when it comes to the indirect costs, you must be having a clear idea of where it is to be considered, whether we have to consider it in factory overhead or to be considered in office and admin overhead or to be considered in selling and distribution overhead. If we are incurring in a particular premises, that is in a factory premises, then we have to take it in factory overhead. Or if we are considering it in the office or in administrative block, which is working to help the factory, then we have to consider it in administrative overhead. And if we are incurring any expenditure for the purpose of selling, for the purpose of advertising in any location outside the factory premises or outside the administrative building, then we have to consider in selling and distribution overhead. And what is the purpose of this segregation is nothing but when we are able to segregate in this, then we can focus on particular head, particular overhead, and we can try to reduce that particular expenditure. Always remember, when you are trying to reduce the cost, you are increasing your profit. Don't think that always we can increase the profit just by selling at higher price. Always you can't sell at higher price. There is another scenario that if you are reducing the cost without compromising the quality, still you can increase your profit. So this is how we can focus on cost aspect. And next concept we can see is the budget. What is budget and how it is going to influence our regular analysis, regular day-to-day life, either being an individual or being an entity we are going to see the budget is an estimation of revenues and expenses over a specified future period of time and is usually compared and reevaluated periodically. See, budget is a fundamental plan. This is going to be done before incurring any expenditure or before getting any revenue. This is not the thing what we are going to do after completion of everything, every aspect. Budget is the thing what we are going to do up before incurring any expenditure based on the estimates. Without budget, can we expect anything? Can we incur a single penny without having a proper budget? Means no. We cannot, we are not supposed to do. If you are incurring a single penny without having a proper plan or proper budget, it may gives you many losses and you are going to end your business or profession or your individual life in a disaster way. It may be a nation or an individual or an entity. Always everyone must have a proper budget. And how this budget would be. We are going to have a few concepts under a main concept of budget. Budget can be made for a person or a group of person, a business or a government, or just about anything else that makes and spends money. Here simply we are quoting in terms of money, but don't think that budget always considers only monetary aspects. It considers non-monetary aspects also. You have to prepare budget for non-monetary things also. Every year we are seeing the budgets like union budget, railway budget, PSU's budget. Why they are preparing the budgets? What is the purpose of the preparation of budget? Is it required to have a pre-plan before spending an expenditure? Means the answer is 100% yes. After the completion of this session, this 1.5 hour session, I am sure that you also will be starting your own budgets, preparation of your own budgets, and I'm sure about it. Because after finding the importance of budget in this session, then you will end up with a complete knowledge and you will end up with a lot of interest to prepare your own budgets and suggesting everyone to have a budget before doing anything. So the types of budgets are three types usually: balanced budget, surplus budget, and deficit budget. I'm not talking entirely in the perspective of union budget. I'm just speaking generally. Always don't expect that you will be having a surplus budget. At the same time, always you must be prepared. You must be prepared yourself to prepare a deficit budget also. Why? Because if you are expecting the huge profits or if you are expecting the surplus, then you can prepare a surplus budget and you can have a profits in future. And if you know that you are going to end up with losses, and if you know that you are going to have a deficit amount in your pocket at the end, but still you have to prepare a budget. Why? Because you have to organize your debts. You have to organize your expenses in such a way that you are not going to increase, you are not supposed to increase your deficit level. If the deficit level increases in an unknowing manner, then it will be out of your hands. You can't see your next budget. You can't see in the next financial statements. So always be prepared to know about surplus budget and also to know about deficit budget. And sometimes we may end up with a break-even point that is nothing but the balanced budget. So why we have to know all this is when you are preparing the budget, we have to know the end point. What is going to be the end point? If we know the end point, then we can do in a planned way. And traditional budgeting and continuous budgeting and 80-20 budget. What are these? See, budget is not a new concept. That's for sure. I'm telling. Everyone knows that budget is not at all the new concept. Since ages, everyone is preparing budget. Every organization is preparing budget. Every individual is going through the budget. But the budget formats, the knowledge on the budget, the requirements of the budget are changing based on the current trends, based on the requirements of the budget preparators. Traditional budgeting is nothing but the old-fashioned budget, old format budget. And to be frank, there is no particular format for the budget. Just like as we see in the cost sheet, there is a particular format for the cost sheet, like you have to take the direct cost first, you have to call it as prime cost, then you have to consider the indirect cost. Indirect costs are to be called as overhead. Overheads are to be segregated in different manners like factory, office administration, selling and distribution. Blah, blah, blah. Everything is there in the cost sheet. But coming to the point of budget, I'm saying you don't have a prefixed format anywhere. It depends on the requirement of the preparator. They prepare their own budgets by following some fundamental rules. For example, our union budget, they are prepared in such a way like how much amount has to be spent on particular heads, how much income they are expecting, and what are the sources of their income. And in case of continuous budgeting, it's a very important current trending budget, which is nothing but we have to update our format regularly and periodically. Whenever required, we have to change the format. We have to add the new heads in the format of budget. We have to make the changes in the budget. That is to be called as continuous budgeting. But make sure that if you are following the continuous budgeting, it doesn't mean that you have to change your budget each and every time, every month, for every fortnight, for every 45 days. You are not supposed to change the budget like that. To the max, you may change one time, or if in exceptional cases, you may change twice. If you are changing again and again, then it's not supposed to be called as budget. Budget must be a benchmark to you. You always must be in your limit. Always make sure that the expenses are within the limit of your budget. Just imagine if you are not having any plan, if you are not having any budget, if you are spending all the income, whatever you are getting, and without knowing your income, you are spending all according to your needs and wants, then it is going to end up with, obviously, with losses. It is going to end up with debts, losses, disaster in the personal lives as well as in the organization future, right? So when you are preparing the continuous budget, make sure that you are having a chance to make few changes in the finalized or sanctioned budget, approved budget, but not many times, maybe once or twice. That's it. And what is 80-20 budget? This is a practical scenario what we are also following in the organizations, in PSUs and all. This 80-20 concept is first we give and we sanction the budget only for the 80% requirement until the last quarter of the year and until the last 45 days of the year. In sometimes we release the budget, we utilize the budget only till 80% level. We try maximum, we keep our maximum efforts to keep the control within 80%. And if it is going out of hands in the last 45 days of the year, then we can release the 20% in the margin level. For example, we have expected that we need 100 rupees, but till last minute, we must hope that we can end up with 80 rupees only. If it is going out of hands, then we can release partial amount in 20 rupees, but don't expect that you can spend the total 100 rupees as you planned, as you have in the budget. Until last minute, you always think that you are having only 80 rupees, you can spend only 80 rupees. You have the requirement of spending only 80 rupees. That is 80-20 budget, which is the practical budget scenario what we fall in all PSUs. Continuous budget also we are not following anywhere. Why? Because if we allow anyone to change the budget, the sanctioned budget, then we won't be having a good grip on the budget. So mostly we suggest everyone to follow only 80-20 budget, rather traditional budget or continuous budgets. And the concept of zero-based budget, when you are starting afresh, you don't have any past data, you don't have any experience, or you want to start afresh based on the current trend, then wipe out all the past expenditure, wipe out all the past experiences, start afresh, prepare a budget according to your needs and wants and current trends. Then it is to be called a zero-based budget. But practically speaking, zero-based budget is also not going to be useful much in your career, either individually or organizationally. Why? Because you must be having a base when you are preparing something. If you want to start afresh, then you will end up with a lot of confusion. But when we don't have the past, how do we prepare? You can take the benchmark of any other entity. You can take the benchmark of any other similar object, similar other expenditure. Based on that, you can prepare the budget for the current period. Why I am telling all this is, see, our session is the cost and budget. As I already told you, we already understood about cost, and now we are understanding about budget. Again, I am repeating, see, this session is not completely of one particular organization or one particular entity. This is the session which is going to be useful for every individual, for every organization at every level. You just imagine, if you don't have a budget, what happens? You just imagine for a second. And you know that you have to have a budget, but how many of us is following the budget? Is only 50%. So I suggest everyone to have a budget before spending any expenditure. Next slide. And the importance of cost and budget, already in the past 15 minutes, we explained in the subject of cost as well as budget. The importance of cost and budgeting in any aspect lie in the ability to prevent unnecessary cost and to collect the correct amount to each corresponding need. For example, in our organization, we have 10 crore funds. How should we spend that 10 crore rupee? That is the maximum grant we can get. Or we are going to get 1 lakh rupee salary a month for 30 days or for 31 days. Then how should we spend that 1 lakh rupee? If you are spending more amount in one particular hand, what happens to the other hand? If you are spending major expenditure for cleaning and sanitizing, 50% of your expenditure you are spending for cleaning and sanitizing, then what happens to the other things? For example, in the union level, in the nation's level, you just imagine our country is having 20 lakh crore rupees in a year. How should they spend the 20 lakh crore rupee? If they are spending 75% of the 20 lakh crore rupee, 15 lakh crore rupee they are spending for the defense. Then what happens to the common man in India? What happens to the poor person? What happened to the education? What happened to the needs? So, budget is going to give us a clear-cut idea to which head we have to spend and how much we can spend or how much we can allocate to a particular head. It provides 100% control over your money. See here, what happens practically is, how we follow is, how we get 100% control over our money is, we know that how much amount we are going to get. Then already we have a plan that 25% we have to spend for this, 25% we have to spend for this, 5% we have to spend for this, and ultimately 20% we have to transfer to the reserves. Like this, we have a plan. And periodically we make a review. In a year, for every month, for every quarter, half yearly, we are making a periodical review, like how much we plan to spend, how much we already spent, how much left over. Is it feasible or not? If we are making all this analysis periodically, then we can say that we are going to have 100% control over our money, right? Isn't it? If you don't have this planning structure, then you won't be having the control on your own money, and it will help to organize our expenses, and it provides cautions and viability to continue. For example, after 3 months in a year, you had an analysis like you plan to spend 20% of your available income, but you already spent 35% in the first quarter itself. Then you came to know that the expenses are increased. By the end of second quarter, you came to know that your expenses are almost crossed your income level. Then immediately it gives you the caution, like reduce your expenditure. Your budget is already exceeded. You have to listen to that caution. If you don't listen to that caution, if you don't control your expenses, and you don't try to get back all your incomes or debts you given, then the loss will be continued, the loss will be increased day by day. By the end of 7 months, by the end of 8 months, if you are going to increase your losses, then simply what we suggest is stop there. Stop there, don't continue. Because in the initially we understood the cost like they are having various heads, direct and indirect. There we have to understand variable as well as fixed expenditure also. See, fixed expenditure is fixed costs are those which you can't avoid anywhere, right? Though you stop your, though you are not going to continue at the month of 7, you have to incur the fixed expenditure, but at least you can save your variable cost. So let it be a continuous process. Always make an eye, and always you make a periodical sessions, periodical analysis, like how far you have an eye on your budget. If it is exceeding, if you are crossing the limit, then as it is giving you as it is giving you the cautions, stop there and don't continue. Okay, if you continue, you are going to end up with losses. Make sure that you have to end up at least at break-even point. If you are not making this analysis, then there is no use of budget itself. And following a budget will keep you out of debt or help you work the way out of debt if you are currently in debt. Already I told you, always don't expect you have to prepare the surplus budget. Sometimes you have to prepare the deficit budget also. Always budget helps you to keep you out of debt. But if you are already in debts, then you can organize your debts in such a way that you can come out of your debts. But all this is possible only when you are following the budget properly. You have to prepare the budget and you have to follow the budget, and then only it is possible. And then it can be a base or a lesson for your future. Already you prepared a budget and you ended up either in some way or some other way. Let it be. You can take it as a base in future, or you can take it as a lesson in future. Lesson is in such a way, like already we plan to have 50 rupees and we plan to spend 40 rupees. But in the last year, we spent 45 rupees. Take it as a lesson. Don't repeat that mistake. Control over your expenditure. At least in this year, you keep it under 40 rupees only. Okay, so always budget must be a lesson for you. You must learn from it. Next, how does it influence the growth? See, I may take the session for 10 hours in budget, but people always think that this is not that much important concept until the experience loss. Let me tell you with one quote given by the great Abraham Lincoln: give me 6 hours to chop down a tree and I will spend first 4 hours sharpening the axe. Why? Do we think that Abraham Lincoln is a mad person to spend 4 precious hours to sharpen his axe out of available 6 hours time? No, right? Always we are busy to earn, always we are busy to spend the earnings, but we don't get a time to have a plan before spending that expenditure, right? But you must be having a time. You must take your time yourself to have a plan before spending a single penny. If you have a proper plan without deviation, then you can have a good control over your upcoming expenditures. Undoubtedly, cost and budget helps us to reach our ultimate goal and to earn balanced profits. Otherwise, it warns us in between not to proceed further and suggests us to stop at least at break-even point of view. If you want to grow, always remember that this cost and budget is going to help you in such a way that it gives you the caution anywhere that you are increasing your expenditure and wants you to stop at least at the break-even point. I hope you know about the break-even point. Break-even point is the point where expenses are equal to the income, or at least if your expenses are increasing over the income, then it's better to stop at break-even point. Whether you are at break-even point or not, you will come to know only when you are making a periodic analysis of your budget. So this is how budget influences the growth of an entity. And if we are not following it, then the growth is going to be shut down undoubtedly. Next slide, please. Now, let us have an overview of our union budget. I hope every one of you know about the union budget. Every year, for one fine day, the total nation awaits, the total nation listens to the media, listens to the speech of our finance minister and prime minister. That day is the union budget day, right? But many of us won't focus on the union budget. They simply take it easy. They don't they don't take it seriously. They don't understand. But that is a wrong conception. Everyone must be having an idea of our union budget. Why? Because they are going to explain, they are going to give a plan of our expenditure being a nation, being an individual, being a citizen. We must know how they are planning to spend our money. So union budget is nothing but annual budget of the Republic of India. That is the annual financial statements. See, the government is having an income and the government is having an expenditure, right? How the government is getting an income? How that is nothing but how they are getting the income? Where government is having the various sources of income. One, taxes, maybe of direct taxes and indirect taxes, right? And maybe from the incomes of public sector undertakings like NTPC, ONGC, Coal India, everything, all the profits. Since these are all state-owned organizations, government, central government, and state governments are the major stakeholders. The profits of PSUs are going to be the incomes of government in the form of dividends. So the major revenue sources for the government is taxes and incomes from PSUs. And coming to the point of expenses, government has to organize the total nation in such a way. It must do the justice to every citizen of the nation, and it must do the justice for every penny it spends effectively, economically, and efficiently, right? Expenditures are many. Income sources are very few for the government, right? Income sources are very few, very limited in nature. taxes and incomes from the PSUs in the form of dividends, right? But coming to the point of expenditure, we have many heads. We have to take care of defense, we have to take care of rural development, rural employment, we have to take care of food subsidies, infrastructure development facilities, everything. Expenditure heads are more, but income sources are very little. So what we have to do is we have to concentrate on how the government is spending the money. And one more thing I have to tell you is union budget, whatever they are presenting on one fine day in the House of Parliament is not the final one. It's a bill. I hope every one of you know about a bill and an act. What is meant by a bill and what is meant by an act? A fundamental question. I hope every one of you know. If you don't know, let me explain you. One person is asking like, what is a bill and what is an act? Bill is nothing but a proposal. It's a draft. They are proposing that we are planning to spend this amount. Or it's a bill, is a proposal, it's a draft, like these are the points we are planning to put, we are planning to implement in the nation. Once a bill is passed in the House of Parliament, it is to be called as an act, right? Anyone can come out with bill that is obviously the leading government, the government on roll. They introduce a bill, they must have a discussion in the House of Parliament. Like it's a proposal, we are proposing to have these rules and regulations for the purpose of implementation in the nation. And in the House of Parliament, the discussion should continue, including all the members of the House, including the opposition parties. What does it mean? Discussion by all the members of the House means nothing but everyone has to discuss, means everyone in the nation are participating. We have selected a representative from our locality in the name of MP. Means nothing but he is discussing in the House of Parliament, means which is equal to the discussion by all the representative, all the citizen in his jurisdiction, right? So all the House members are to be discussed, are to give their consent in the House of Parliament on the proposed bill. And if they want to make any changes, they can suggest some changes in the bill, in the proposal, and the Speaker can suggest to make some changes. And after changing the proposals, the final draft may be approved by the majority members in the House of Parliament. Once it is approved, once majority members give their consent in the House of Parliament, then it becomes an act. So first we must know what is a bill and what is an act, what is a finance bill and finance act. So once it becomes an act by having a consent in the House of Parliament, then it is going to be implemented in the nation by having an amendments. Parliament means nothing but both the houses of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha and the assent of the president. All the procedure has to be done. We are using the word parliament, but some of you may think that parliament is only the Lok Sabha, but not like that. Once the bill is passed in the House of Lok Sabha, then we send it to Rajya Sabha. And once it is also passed in the House of Rajya Sabha, then they send it to get an approval of president. Then once we get the consent of the president, then we can say that it is passed in the House of Parliament. Once it is passed, then bill becomes an act. Once it becomes an act, then from effective date, it has to be implemented in the nation. If any exceptions are there, then they can follow too. So finance bill becomes an act in the House of Parliament, in that they usually explain like how they are planning to spend the amount in the coming year. They may give some subsidies, they may increase the expenditure one head, they may reduce the expenditure in one head. See how you are planning all these things at your home. The same way, government plans in the name of union budget in the House of Parliament. We must take care of the union budget. We means nothing but each and every member in the House of Parliament must take care as we are taking at our house. So always have a focus on the union budget because this is our money spending by the government. It is the statement of estimated receipts and expenditure of government classified into revenue budget and capital budget. Presents in the manner in the name finance bill at the House of Parliament with the proposed expenditures and amendments. Once it is approved by the House, it becomes an, as I already explained to you. Next slide, please. See, I gave some major heads of expenditures. Major heads, these heads we are finding in union budgets. Grants united to union territory. Defense expenditure. Usually nowadays we are spending more in defense. Rural employment, pensions, relief on natural calamities, police force, railways, education, petroleum subsidy, space research, food subsidy, interest payment, and all other expenditures. These are the major heads in union budget. See, just understand these heads are fundamental in nature. In which head they have to spend more and which head they have to spend less. It entirely depends on the current scenario. Sometimes we may need to spend more in defense. Sometimes we may need to spend less in defense. For example, in the first budget in 1948-49 time, we were having only 7.5 months in the year. Do you know the total expected revenue in that year? Total expected revenue was 171 crore rupees in 1948-49, the initial days of independence. Out of 171 crores of income, our government tried to spend 92.74 crores only for defense. You may not believe these figures. We were having 171 crores in 1948-49. Out of 171 crore, we were having 15.9 crore only from Post and Telegraph Department. Nowadays, I think Post and Telegraph Department is contributing very less amount to the income of the government of India, but in 1947-48, Post and Telegraph Department contributed 15.9 crore rupees out of 171 crore rupee income. Just imagine. And out of the total expenditure at that time, we were having a plan to spend 197 crore rupee in 1947-48. Out of 197 crore, we tried to spend 92.74 rupees only for the purpose of defense. In the initial days, we were in a merge. We were at the edge of protecting the nation in such a way that we must incur more in defense. As the days passed on, and now we are spending less amount in defense and we are spending more on rural employment as well as on infrastructure in the nation. It depends on the current trends. We have to increase the expenditure in some heads and we have to reduce the expenditure in some heads. But as a citizen, we must focus on, we must have an idea like how government is spending, in which head it is increasing the expenditure, in which head it is reducing the expenditure and all. And so that we can have an idea like how government is doing. If you don't know how government is spending the money, then how can we take a decision like we can vote for the particular government in the next session or not, right? So always have an eye like how government is spending the money, in which head they are spending this money. So just for a brief note, for the last 5 years, I am giving you a trend like how the expenditures are in the past 5 years in our government. Start from the year 2014 to 2021. But just for example's sake, I told you start from the year 1948-49 time. 1948-49, the expenditure was 197 crore. But in 2014-15, just imagine what is our budgeted expenditure. Just these figures. Already I gave the figures in crores rupees. These are not the rupees simply. These are the rupees in crores. How many crores? Just see. 17,94,892 crores of expenditure in 1914 and 15. 1915 and 16, it has increased to 17 lakh crore. 16, 17, it is increased to 19 lakh crore. These are the expenditure. I'm not talking about incomes. Incomes are less than these proposed expenditures. Okay. Only expenditures, 2014-15, it was around 18 lakh crore. It was around 17.77 lakh crore in 15-16, 16-17, 19.78 lakh crore. 17-18, 21.57 lakh crore, and 18-19, 24.42 lakh crore. And 19-20, it is 27.86 lakh crore. In 2019, actually, there is a change in the budget. Revised budget came, and based on that figure, it was around 27.86 lakh crores. And in 2021, the budgeted amount was budgeted expenditure was in this year 30,42,230 crore, which is 12.7% increase to the earlier budget. Just imagine how the government is spending the amount. See, when you are spending 10 rupees from your pocket, do we need to have a plan or not? You are getting 50,000 rupees salary. How much you are spending in a month? How much to be saved? If you don't have any plan, then how it is going to be? So as an individual, if you are taking care that minutely, then what about the government when they are spending lakhs crores of rupees? Just imagine. So always have an eye like how government is doing just by the way they are spending the expenditure. And if you are not satisfied with that, you can also raise a question being an individual. This is a democratic nation, right? But there is a way, there is a process. Okay, next slide, please. Now, already I told you earlier, like the incomes sources for the government is, the income sources are mostly for the government is one, taxes, either in the form of direct taxes or in the form of indirect taxes, right? The another source is from the PSUs, public sector undertakings. So in our government of, under the control of government of India, maybe in central government hands or in state government hands, we have at present 10 Maharatna companies, 14 Navaratna companies, and 74 Mini Ratna companies, public sector undertakings, and 384 CPS, that is Central Public Sector Enterprises. So most of these are running in huge profits. You can't imagine like how these entities are doing in India. India is not a poor country, as we always say. India is a very rich country, with very rich resources. See, all our PSUs are natural resource based industries. Most of them are. India is having a plenty of resources. Our government is doing business with our natural resources because they have to serve each and every needy citizen in the nation, right? So they established various undertakings, companies in the name of Maharatna status, Navaratna status, Mini Ratna status, and CPSUs. And few PSUs are IOCL, NTPC, Coal India, Power Grid, BPCL, Power Finance, and Mahanidhi Coalfields, which is a subsidiary of Coal India, and HPCL too. And I gave you the profit figures for the year 18-19 because 19-25 figures are not yet finalized in many PSUs. The annual general meeting has not done yet. For the 18-19, these are the profits. Don't think that these are the incomes of PSUs. As I already told, the government is spending almost 20 lakhs, 30 lakhs crores of rupees every year. Just imagine how the incomes of these PSUs. Let me tell you, like Coal India, how it is doing. Coal India turnover itself is almost 1.4 lakh crore rupees. We are selling the coal every year. And coming to the sector of railways, the Indian railways also it is also making of 2 lakh crores rupees every year income. And coming to the point of employment, the railways is providing the employment for almost 12 lakh people in India. 12 lakh employees are there. In Coal India, we have almost 3 lakh employees are there. You just imagine 12 lakh, 3 lakh employees means it relates to the 12 lakh families and 3 lakh families in India. And directly and indirectly, we are contributing to the nation in the form of profit, in the form of taxes, either directly or indirectly too, as a citizen of the nation. So if PSUs are not working well, then government can't get enough income to run the nation, to spend the expenditure. Why we are focusing on this PSU when we are talking about the budget is nothing but, see, government, how it is taking care of the budget every year in the name of union budget. In the same way, PSUs have to take care while spending a single penny also. Why? Because whatever the rupee is saving by the PSU is going to be useful to the government of India. Indirectly, it is going to be useful for the citizen of the nation. So always government have a control over PSUs while preparing the budget of PSUs also. I'll give you some example about the Coal India budget. Not only Coal India, all these NTPC, IOCL, or SAIL, all these budgets for the year are almost 50,000 crores, 70,000 crores like that. So we are getting 1.4 lakh crores in a year in Coal India. Our budget is around 55 to 60,000 crores. I can't give the exact figure, being like I have to maintain the confidentiality as well. Only for your academic purpose, I'm giving you some updates, like rough figures I can tell you. Like we are preparing the budget for 50 to 60,000 crore rupees every year. Like how to spend these 50,000 crore rupees. See, if we are not taking care of that 50,000 crore rupees, if it ends with 60,000 crore rupees, it means nothing but the government is going to get 10,000 crores a lesser income. So which is going to have an impact in the union budget. So all PSUs must have a strict and rigid control on their budgets so that they can save a little amount, so that the saved amount can be utilized by the government for various purposes. See, all these are the profits only. Out of 1.4 lakh crore in Coal India, we are spending only 40 to 45,000 crore. All the 55,000 crore is going to the hands of government of India. How means out of that 50,000 crore, 50 lakh crore rupees, 90% of the amount usually they take in the form of dividends, because central government is the stakeholder, the major stakeholder in all these PSUs. So initially they take out all the money in the name of dividend, and if any profit left out, then it will be as reserve in that particular PSU. Okay, so always make an eye to know about the PSU's budget also every year. Next slide, please. So tips to prepare a proper budget. See, when you're preparing a budget, either your individual budget or if you are preparing a budget for your entity in anything, then you must keep an eye. You must keep. You must follow these few rules. First one is, the basic rule is to divide up after tax income and allocate it to spend 50% on it, 30% on wants, and soaking away 20% to savings. I will come out with this 20% concept again. Already I told you about this 80-20 concept, right? So again, this 20% concept I added in these tips also. And again, I will bring out this concept in the name of reserves, maybe in the next slide. See, always you have an eye like 50%, 30%, and 20%. Like Initially, you spend 50% only on particular needs, compulsory aspects. And then you may incur 30% of your budget, maybe for the wants. And you must know about what is a need and what is a want. Okay. You must segregate your expenditure based on needs and based on wants. And then you can prepare your budget accordingly by saving 20%. And be clear about fixed, recurring, non-recurring, and vanish. Vanish is nothing but the worst kind of expenses you may incur at the end. Okay, you must having a knowledge what is a fixed expenditure, what is a recurring expenditure, what is a non-recurring expenditure, and what are the vanish. If you know these concepts well, then you can prepare budget very plannedly. Next, separate needs and wants. You must know what are your needs, what are your wants. Even in your individual level, you must know what are the needs and what are the wants. When you are spending an income, you must know what is your need. You must know what is your want. First, you fulfill your needs. Then you can go for your wants if you left out with sufficient balances and make an analysis of important and urgent. Actually, we have a session, separate session on this. Like you must have a plan like what is important and urgent aspect and what is important but not urgent aspect and what is urgent but not important aspect and what is not urgent and not important aspect. Okay, you must prepare your expenses. You must have a plan. Like you must bring down the heads comes under in which particular concept. If it is important and urgent, you bring out in level 1. You incur those first. If it is important but not urgent, if it is urgent but not important, then bring them to the second level. If it is not important and not urgent, then you keep it in the third level. If you are planning in such a way, then you can fulfill all your basic needs, as I said earlier. Then you can go for your wants. Okay, if you are not following this, if you are fulfilling, if you are spending all the amount for the fourth category, like neither urgent nor important, then you will left with zero amount at the end to fulfill important and urgent aspects, right? So whenever you are planning, you always go with these 4 individual concepts. Okay, next slide, please. Then after listening all this, again, you may have an idea, already you got an idea like why do we fail? Either individual, either in the role of individual or in the role of organization. Why do we fail? The first thing already you know is if you don't have a proper planning, if you don't have a budget, a full-fledged budget, a proper budget, then we fail, right? The basic things. Why do we fail? We must know that because of unrealistic goals, the goal must be clear and you have to prepare your cost, you have to prepare your budget according to the requirement of your goal, then only it is going to be possible. For example, if you have a plan to complete one particular educational course in these many years, then you must be you have a realistic goal. Then you have to spend time, you have to spend money, devotion, everything according to that goal. If you have an unrealistic goal, then everything fails. Individual himself failed, right? Next, frequent changes to the original plan. Already I told you when we were discussing the concept of budget. In the concept of continuous budget, I told you a few minutes back, like when you have prepared something, fundamentally stick to it. If you wanted to change, then you may change it once. If you are keep on changing it, if you are making frequent changes, if you want to go straight to reach an endpoint, go straight. You know that you have to go in this road. If some block is there, you can change your route once. If you are changing routes again and again, because of many reasons, by reason A, by reason B, you are pulling many reasons and changing plans every time, then reaching a goal is going to be a dream only. You can't reach it ever, right? So don't change your plans anytime. Next, unforeseen events. Sometimes we may fail to forecast something. If we are not expert in forecasting, then we can take the help of expert in particular subject and we can forecast something, and we must foresee the future. And then our plan must be prepared accordingly. If any unforeseen events come across in between, then we must be prepared to overcome those. If we are not prepared well, then also we will end up with fail and lack of expertise in skill. Expertise and skill are very important in nature, which you have to update every time at every level, right? If you don't update yourself every time, if you are not being an expert, if you are not having enough skills, then a simple budget, a simple plan cannot take you to an end point to reach your goal. It doesn't take you to reach your goal, right? So always update yourself, always be, always to be an expert, to grab the expertise and to grab the skills in particular subject to reach the goals. Then only the budget can be a grand success. And lack of control and discipline. Already I told you, you must be having a control. Simply preparing a budget on paper doesn't give you anything, doesn't take you to the end point, right? You must be having a strict control on it. When you are having 50,000 rupees income in a month and you have a plan to spend 30,000 rupees and you have a plan to spend, save 20,000 rupees, you must do it. You must stick to it, whatever the reason, unless and until it is a disaster, right? If you don't have a control on that 30,000 rupees, if you are not looking into it, if you don't have a periodical review, if you are not taking care of it, if you don't have a discipline, then it is of useless to have a budget. It is of useless to know all these things and to prepare a budget to follow it, right? So make a periodical reviews and then have a strict control and discipline on it. Okay, and then good group dynamics. So when we are talking about a group thing, I would like to tell you what is meant by team. Team means nothing but together everyone achieve more. It may be an organization or any other thing. For example, now we are conducting this session. Just imagine like how many people involved in this session, how many big people involved in this session, and how much precious time they are spending here, how much precious time they spent before conducting this session, how much amount they are spending here, how much technology we are using here. So this is not the task of a single man. This is not my own task, right? The total team of Mizoram Central University, right? Start from the great Vice Chancellor, sir, and the HODs, the organizing teams, technical team, everyone is working behind to make this session successful, right? Like this, everyone is working together. Then only it is getting possible. Just like that, when you are preparing a budget, when you are implementing a budget, don't think that this is your individual concept. This is your individual expenditure or income. Okay, a team has to work together. Even if it's a house, the total members in the house, the total family members has to work together. Then only it is possible, right? When you are preparing a budget, then make them involved in it. Let it be a group work, group task. Then it will be a grand success. I want to tell you with one quote, like, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So this budget concept, planning concept is entirely depends on the future. We have to go far off levels, far off places, right? So always have a team and work together, and then we can go far off places and we can reach our goals at the end. Okay, next slide, please. So in 80-20 concept of the budget, I told you, you must wait for 20%. And in 50-30-20 concept, I told you like 20% you have to keep aside. What is that 20? Is see, let's what Warren Buffett said. Do not save what is left after spending, but spend what is left after saving. This is a very key point we must remember at every point, at every level of our lives, individual lives, organization lives, and especially at the time of budgeting. First, you keep 20% aside, if possible, more than 20%. Then only you start spending. Then only you start organizing your expenditures. Okay, without thinking, without keeping the money for the purpose of savings, don't ever think about expenses. Okay, because savings are going to save you in the future. If you don't have the savings, then you can't even prepare a deficit budget in the future. Okay, so whenever you are preparing a budget, always first think about saving, always first think about the reserves, and then you plan about balance for the purpose of expenses. Okay, so savings, give the priority for the savings. One of the most important things that long-standing and successful is to maintain cash reserves. The cash reserve can help you pay employees and suppliers during hard times. It can help keep things moving if clients start paying slowly, and it helps us during a downturn. Okay, so have a priority for the savings around the time. Okay, next slide, please. See, actually, coming to the point of academic perspective, we can't tell that this budget is exclusively for the academic perspective. This cost is only useful for the manufacturing entity. We are not supposed to study anything exactly for the purpose of examination or for the purpose of anything else. If we learn anything practically, what had happened and what is happening, then academically it will give us excellence without any doubt. At the same time, it is going to be useful in any sources. It is going to be a resource for you in many sources, right? But if we want to talk 100%, particularly in academic perspective, this cost and budgeting, how it is going to influence and how this finance and account is going to be influenced, then we can say that everyone should grab fundamental knowledge in finance and accounts irrespective of their business or profession. See, you may become an expert in some subject. You may become a very big businessman, entrepreneur. But if you don't have a fundamental knowledge in finance and accounts, if you don't know about budget, if you don't know about cost, then how you do the business? Ultimately, you are working somewhere, you are a scientist, you are earning some money, but you don't know how to spend, you don't know how to take care of finance, then how you live your life, maybe after retirement, right? So irrespective of the profession, what I suggest is everyone must have a knowledge, a fundamental knowledge, if possible, a basic and thorough knowledge in finance and accounts. Then only they can continue their success in future. You can make your profession in accounts and finance by opting professional courses like CA, Chartered Accountancy, Cost and Management Accountancy, Company Secretary, and can do your masters and doctorates in commerce and business administration aspect. If you want to make your career completely in finance and accounts, if you want to be yourself as an expert in finance and accounts, then you can opt any of these courses. Then you can mold your career in such a way. Next slide, please. So this is the basic session on this cost and budget. So I shared the little figures and experiences being a coal Indian, but just to maintain some confidentiality. I'm not supposed to discuss exact figures and exact data, but this is how usually we are preparing the budget and we are maintaining the budget in organization level and in total India level. So I suggest every one of you to make the use of my session and implement this cost and budget in your practical life, either as an individual or in your organization. Okay. And I am thankful so much to the entire team of the great Mizoram Central University and to the great management of Mizoram Central University and to the all participants for having all this 1.5 hour session. Thank you. Thank you so much. And if you have any doubts, then you can ask me directly here, or also you can contact me either through phone or by email ID. Then I will reward you on times. Thank you.
Hello, Mr. Teja, sir.
Sir.
Hello, are you able to hear
Yes,
me?
tell me, sir. Yes, I am able to hear
Actually,
you.
we have few questions from the participants.
Yes, please go on.
We have few questions from the participants. Dr.
Okay.
Kota Srinivasmurthy,
Okay.
how do you solve BEP, break-even point,
Okay.
in the organization?
Okay. So normally, coming to the point of educational level, we have a formula like break-even point, how we consider the fixed cost and profit volume ratio, right? Fixed cost by profit volume ratio, if we take, we can get the break-even point. But academically, it is correct. But coming to the practical scenario, we come to the break-even point level, like, as I told you, we must take care of the resource, right? Whenever we are keeping the reserves aside, whatever the amount is left over for the purpose of expenditure and actual expenditure. By considering these two things, usually we take the break-even point. For example, how we are following in our project. So I am working for Gebra coal mine, which is Asia's biggest project. How we are following is, we have the HEMM machinery here. Heavy equipment machinery, one machine, like one dozer, costs almost 250 crore rupees. We got the budget of 500 crore rupees for this year. Okay, and we got the proposal from the excavation department to spend 400 crore rupees. That is okay, but already till now we got the repair expenditures which were crossed 100 crore rupees. Together it crossed over 500 crores. So we reject the proposal of the excavation department to buy another dozer. Why? Because we have the budget only for 500 crore rupees. The production is going to be hindered, but we are ready to forego the production. But still, we can't incur more expenditure on this, on the heavy equipment machinery. So we fixed like 500 crore is the break-even point. This is the benchmark. If you want to buy any machinery, you buy only within the budget of 500 crore rupees. If you can't buy, then we will compromise the production, but we don't allow any further expenditure. So practically, we follow like this. Theoretically, we calculate normally fixed cost by PV ratio, profit volume ratio. Profit volume ratio is nothing but contribution per unit by variable cost per unit. We consider that academically we all know. We all these things. But practically, we are considering the break-even point in such a way as always we make an eye how much expenditure we already incurred. That is, we always compare the actuals with budget. And if we are crossing the budget at any point of view, then we reject all the proposed expenditures and we send back the files to the concerned department, stating that budget is already overloaded. This is how we follow break-even point. Okay.
Sir, another question.
Yes.
Dvijendro Singh,
Yes.
what type of budget you prefer and why?
We always prefer continuous budgets. Continuous budget, but initially it must be 80-20. Why? Because we can't expect the changes every time. All our expectations are going to be done 100%. Just for example, pandemic came, COVID-19 came in this year. The total estimations went wrong, right? In our organization, we started spending huge amount, almost 25% excess expenditure we spend for the precautions of COVID-19. Why? Because we are in essential services of the nation. Coal has to be produced continuously. If you don't produce the coal, then electricity can't be generated in any thermal plants. Electricity is not generated, then the total power units will be shuttered down. No electricity will be there in India. So coal, there should not be any hindrance for the production of coal, right? But the times like this COVID-19 and all cannot give a fruitful result for our budgets if we go for some traditional things. So we always make some reserve 20% for any of these unforeseen things, and we try to revise the budget periodically, not completely, to the maximum of 20%. So we follow continuous budget, but keeping 80-20 in you, and I follow everyone to follow the same. Okay. Next
Sir,
question,
another
please.
question. Indian government adopted which methodology for budget allocation?
Methodology point of view, it all depends on the current year requirements. See, always our union budget is the deficit budget because ours is a developing nation. We don't have enough resources. The government of India won't be having enough income to fulfill all the requirements of all the citizens of the nation, to fulfill all the expenditures, right? So we are ending up with deficit budget. So coming to the point of particular methodology, they are simply following based on the current year requirements and proposals from concerned ministries. There is no hard and fast rule. There is no hard and fast. There is no particular format or any such thing. Next. Next question, please.
Do you prefer budgeting by software or budgeting manually?
Both are important. Initially, we have to go through the manual figures. Then, if required, we can take the help of the software as well.
Okay.
But initially,
costs.
let me continue. Sorry for the interruption. Initially, we have to take care manually only. Everything can't be done in software. First of all, we have to grab the information from all the sources, all the required sources, all the departments, all the segments. Then, as per the guidelines, rules, and regulations, then we have to make proper modifications, and then we have to make the use of software, available software to finalize it. Software's technology part is very minimal in budget preparation.
So another question, what is the difference between cost control and cost reduction?
It's a very fundamental question. Everyone must know fundamentally and theoretically. Cost control is nothing but controlling the cost not to exceed over the limit. I repeat, control is nothing but controlling the cost not to exceed over the limit. Reduce is the one permanent reduction in per unit expenditure. See, both the things are different. Actually, these are the fundamental object of the cost learning. Cost control is, for example, we kept 50 rupees as the benchmark. It must be 50 rupees. It must not cross 50 rupees. It should not supposed to be 51, 52 rupees. If you are taking care of it, it is cost control. Okay. Cost reduction is nothing but per unit cost is going to be 10 rupees. We always try to make it 9 rupees. We always try to make it 8 rupees 50 paise. That is nothing but cost reduction. Okay, hope you understand this cost control and cost reduction concept in brief.
So another question,
Yes.
we do not have more money in our government.
Why
don't we print more currencies?
That's a very fundamental and very conceptual, very interesting questions. Usually many students ask me like, if you don't have a money, we can print the money now. What happens? What happens when everyone will be having money? The rupee value, we are decreasing ourselves. So for the time being, it's a very big session. I will explain you when I get an opportunity to tell you the whole monetary concept of the nation, not only India, for all the countries. But simply, I can tell you one thing: like if we are printing our currency, we are degrading our currency. That is, the total rupee value is going to be deflated. We are killing our rupee value in the international market if we are printing more currency. And this is point number one. And second point, I would like to mention is the legal aspect in international way is International Monetary Fund Organization keeps an eye, and it is having a very strict and rigid rule that we must have a currency only based on our gold resources. Okay, so every nation must follow this rule. Beyond this, if you don't have the enough gold reserves, then you are not supposed to print the currency beyond that. Okay, so always nation must print the currency, must have the currency in its pocket only based on its gold reserves. If we are not following it, then we are killing our rupee value ourselves. Okay.
Okay, one more question. Sometimes unexpected costs occur and it triggers excess in budgeting. Please suggest the best backup plan for personal budgeting as well as for an organization.
See, this is why. See, I think the one who asked this question is planning his expenditure in a very planned way. He's a very genius. He understood the concept of budget very well. That's why he asked this question. The main purpose of that 80-20 concept, 50-30-20 concept, the 20% reserves is this only. Always try to spend only 50%. Keep that 30%, 20% aside. Keep some backup. Backup is nothing but reserve. How you are going to be going to use your reserve? So in case of deficits, unknown expenditures, if you want to face, right? And if you have a fear about these things in future, increase your reserve level simply by increasing your reserve level. You can play safe, but you can't do it within a year. You have to keep increasing slowly. This year, your reserve level is 20%. Next year, you try to increase it to 25% or 23%. And the other year, you try to increase it to 25%. This is one way. The other way is you try to increase your income sources. Third way, you try to reduce your expenditure. So all things are going to be help you for your question, I hope.
So another question is principal budget factor or limiting factor
Hmm.
is of vital significance to management?
Hmm.
Please explain.
Can you repeat the question?
Principal budget factor or limiting
Okay.
factor is of vital significance
Hmm.
to the management.
Yes, yes.
Is it a vital
Very,
significant
very vital
factors?
significant, I can say. How the limiting factor is going to be useful and how it is going to influence the budget is, it is just like a boundary level for the total concurrence. Here, what we see is we issue, even in your organization also, when you are dealing with some files, you may come across like initially they have to take BC, budget concurrence, right? And then they have to take FC, financial concurrence, right? And then they have to see the BE, budget estimates, and then they have to see RE, revised estimates, right? Right? All these concepts are usually keeps a boundary level before sanctioning any proposal, before sanctioning any file, before sanctioning any approval, giving any approval. You must see all this. If they are crossing the limiting factor, you are not supposed to approve it in any way without having a consent of the total team. Total team means your board level. Okay. If you are not taking care of the limiting factor, it is nothing but it is not use of preparing the budget as a whole, right? The total budget fails if you are not following the limiting factor. It is a guideline provided to you, right? So always the limiting factor is very, very vital, it plays a very important role to the management to implement the budget in a efficient way.
So another question from the Dr. Kota Srinivasmurthy. What is master budget? How it is useful to the organization?
Master budget is going to be a benchmark. It is a fundamental budget. Uh, Sometimes you may need to prepare the budget based on some estimates. I mean, obviously, budget is nothing but estimates, but you must be having some benchmarks, right? Benchmark is nothing but if someone is doing his excellence at some point of time, we must take it as a benchmark and we must follow it while performing our activity, right? Master budget acts in such a way that when you are doing some revision or when you are planning something else or when you are modifying, as in case of continuous budget, you always keeps think of the master budget, like how much is there in the master budget and are we following it or not. This is organization as a whole, in subsidiaries point of view, in departments point of view. For example, in Coal India, we have a parent company, Coal India, and in Coal India, we have 8 subsidiaries: Southeastern Coalfields, Western Coalfields, Northern Coalfields, Western Coalfields, Northeastern Coalfields. Like we have various subsidiaries. The Coal India is having a particular budget. It is having a budget. And when we are preparing a budget in a subsidiary level, we must have a focus on the parent budget, the pastor budget. All these budgets, subsidiary budgets, are not supposed to deviate the budget of the parent company to the master budget, right? So if any such master budget is there other than individual budget, then we must keep an eye and we must take it as a base while preparing our budget. Okay, I hope I solved your question.
Okay. Explain green accounting.
Green
I think it is
accounting
not
is
related.
not related in cost and budget. We can accept this in some other session, or I will reply personally.
Okay. So this is all the questions from the participants side.
Okay.
Well, Professor N.V.R. Jyoti Kumar, sir, do you have any questions, sir?
Okay, am I audible now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I enjoyed the session on Dharmateja
Okay, sir. Thank you.
because it is not just a commerce topic. You have touched upon commerce, little bit commerce, then public administration, political economy, personality development, personal financing point of view, personality development, many aspects we have touched upon. That is why yesterday I posted in Nets of the Departments group also that better you encourage your students also, whatever may be their discipline, basic discipline, it is going to be relevant with the practical importance. Like that, I requested them. So I'm very happy that there are a good number of questions also, and you have answered all those questions very well. And we will continue our interaction in future endeavors.
That is for sure, sir.
Because we need to take the help of practitioners from the industry for the benefit of our students. So thank you so much from our department and from our university.
Thank you so much, sir.
So, delivering this session to the Dr. Lalman Luangi Panay. Madam Panay, please.
Thank you, the chairman. First of all, I'd like to give a special thanks to our speaker, Mr. Dharmateja Imadi, an officer, Finance and Accounts, Coal India Limited, for accepting our invitation to be the speaker for today and for making him available himself for today's webinar. Sir, thank you so much for your convenience, and it is very, very informative and interesting, and especially for me, it is very, very important. So I remember, and we hope that we'll have a good relationship in futures, and then all the best for your future as well. And we are very, very grateful to you. Thank you so much, sir. And I also like to express our sincere thanks to Honorable Vice Chancellor, Mizoram University, for giving us a permission to conduct this webinar. And under his guidance and his permission, we can conduct a lot of webinars, and because of his support only. Thank you. So special thanks to him. And I also extend my thanks to the organizing team, especially to Dr. Ramakrishna Guram, for taking all the initiative to make a successful webinar. And I also thanks to our head, Professor Jyoti, Department of Commerce, for his enormous cooperation in the organization of this event. And thanks to all my colleagues for their support. This event cannot happen overnight, and times and efforts and so many other things require. Anyway, thank you so much for all your support. And I also want to give thanks to technical team, ICT Center, Computer Center, Mizoram University, for their endless support and making the arrangement for today's webinar. And thank you so much to them. And for the last but not the least, I also want to say thanks to all the participants, and also want to say thanks to the faculty, to different colleges who have attended here. Thank you so much, and thanks to all the participants. And without you, without your presence, this webinar cannot be successful. Because of that, we are very, very happy for your joining today. Thank you so much. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Thanks for coming. And I think, shall we close the session, sir?
Yes. Big thanks for all participants.
Thank you, all participants, for
Yes.
your participation.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Please.
My special thanks to Jyoti Kumar sir, respected HOD sir, and special thanks to Panay madam and Guram Ramakrishna sir, who coordinated really very well to conduct this session and to make this session very successful. Thank you so much for all the entire team, and I hope that we will continue same type of sessions in future as well.
Sure.
Thank you. All the best for the entire team.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.